This is a full story. Puppy wishes you all a happy and enjoyable story. After my boyfriend and I broke up, he posted a high-profile display of affection on social media that very night. Women are better, fragrant, and soft. I was irritated, so I asked my well-built cousin with broad shoulders and a narrow waist to quickly take a few intimate photos with me and post them. Brothers are better, strong, and robust. Late that night, my ex sneaked into my home, dragged me out of bed, and started searching everywhere. Where's the man? Where's the wild man? Where did you hide him? When Tony's affair with a popular actress made headlines, I was at home preparing lunch for him. Hey, you should check out the trending news. It's blowing up. My cousin's voice was urgent, but I calmly opened the trending news. The headline was glaringly obvious. #T-Group CEO kisses popular actress Serena passionately outside a hotel late at night. The article detailed their flirtatious timeline. They dined together, went for walks, shopped, and watched movies. There were plenty of pictures to prove it, but during these times, Tony had told me he was busy. The comments section was buzzing with excitement. A match made in heaven. I always said Sister Jo has high standards for men. Tony is so handsome and wealthy. They're truly a perfect couple. I wish you happiness. Lock me in. I remember Tony had a partner, and it was a guy, wasn't it? Maybe I'm mistaken. For the people above, who hasn't made mistakes in their youth? That's old news from college. Tony hasn't mentioned it since taking over the family business. They must have broken up ages ago. He's on the right path now, which is good. Tony finally gave in to his cheating. I looked at the meal I had prepared and packed it into a lunchbox. One last delivery. When I burst into the office, Tony was typing away at his keyboard and didn't even notice me. Tony. My voice wasn't loud, but in the quiet office, he definitely heard me. He finally stopped typing, glanced at the lunchbox in my hand, and spoke in his usual indifferent tone. Just leave it on the desk and go. I'm working. Don't you have anything to explain? I pulled out my phone, opened the trending news, and placed it in front of him. As he skimmed through the information, I waited quietly for his response. Haley, are you being annoying? We're just friends. Do you think I can't live without you? He frowned, his voice cold. I looked him straight in the eye and asked seriously, Tony, do friends kiss each other? His expression froze, and then, finding some courage, he started to give up. If you want to break up, then let's break up. I've realized that women are better. They're soft and cuddly. Actually, the lipstick mark you saw on my shirt last time wasn't from me accidentally brushing against something. It was left by Serena. And the last time I said I had a meeting at the company, I was actually at a restaurant with Serena. Since you already know, there's nothing left to hide. Tony arrogantly listed his excuses, but I felt numb inside and didn't have much of a reaction. I had noticed Tony's cheating intentions a couple of years ago, and over time, my feelings had completely faded. Why do people change? He once used that mouth to speak so many sweet words and promises to me. How could everything change overnight? But I had long been clear-headed. What comes too easily is not cherished. This is just the inherent flaw of wealthy men. I had long wanted to break up with Tony. I was just waiting for the right moment. I threw the carefully prepared meal at him, my face full of sorrow. Tony, you've really disappointed me. I turned and walked away without hesitation. Finally, breaking up with this scumbag. I sighed with relief. My only strength is that I can let go. No matter how painful, I will cut him out of my heart. That night, Tony posted a high-profile display of affection with Serena's slim waist on social media. Women are better, fragrant, and soft. All of his friends congratulated him. The words perfect match made me feel very unhappy. I called my well-built, handsome sports cousin. He took off his shirt, revealing his toned abs. I hugged his waist and posted on social media as well. Brothers are better, strong, and robust. The implication was that Tony had grown old and weak, not as good as my cousin. Anyone who knew our relationship could instantly see the meaning behind it. After posting, I felt a secret satisfaction. In the middle of the night, while I was lying in bed watching a drama and crying over great family affection. Click. The sound of a key opening the door came, and then footsteps approached me. I was lost in my emotions and didn't notice someone standing behind me. The man pulled me off the bed and started searching everywhere. Where's the man? Where's the wild man? Where did you hide him? I held my tablet, tears in my eyes, looking at the furious man in front of me. Tony pulled back the blanket, looked around, and even nervously sniffed the bed. When he stopped and slowly approached me, rubbing his finger under my eye, his voice was hoarse. Crying? Did he really think I was crying for him? How laughable. I turned my head away, unwilling to look at him. He grabbed my chin, leaned in to kiss me, and I slapped him hard. Are you out of your mind? Haley, what are you making a fuss about? Tony frowned, his tone unfriendly. Tony, you're the one who initiated the breakup. Why can you post about your new romance while I can't? Double standards shouldn't be so obvious. Seeing my indifferent attitude, Tony was so enraged that he turned to leave. Leave the keys and get out. He angrily tossed the keys on the table and left with a parting shot. Haley, don't regret it. Watching his departing figure, I couldn't help but laugh. Our relationship began with him. In college, Tony fell for me at first sight and pursued me relentlessly. He didn't care about societal views, offering his fiery affection carefully. As we spent time together, I accepted his confession. Undeniably, I had genuinely liked Tony at one point. He came from a wealthy family, was a bit arrogant, but I was willing to accommodate him. But after graduation, Tony became increasingly worse, as if he was sure I would never leave him. My feelings for him gradually faded over time. TSK, his kindness had long been negated by years of reckless behavior. Teacher, don't forget to give me a lesson today. The next morning, I woke up at 11 o'clock. I had stayed up late watching a drama and overslept. I looked at the message from Rocky and rubbed my temples. I almost forgot that today was the weekend. On my way. The tutoring was scheduled for 2 p.m., but I had promised to have lunch with him every Saturday from the beginning. By the time I arrived at the large villa, young Master Rocky was already sitting patiently, waiting for me. Teacher, you're here. Rocky's eyes lit up when he saw me, and he smiled with his lips curled up, his little tiger teeth sparkling under the light. Such a sunny and clean boy, it's hard to reconcile this image with the descriptions given by his parents. When I came for the interview, his parents told me that due to their negligence in his early years, Rocky's personality had become obsessive and volatile, prone to fits of rage. I should prepare myself mentally. Every teacher who had come to apply for the job had fled after hearing such an introduction. Initially, I was cautious, but as time went on, I was gradually won over by his nature, and I came to see him as a deeply sensitive child who longed for affection. He was very polite to me and worked hard in his studies. After lunch, I went to his room to tutor him. While he was working on his problems, I took a close look at his papers. The handwriting was neat, and his work was very serious, showing rapid improvement compared to before. Teacher, can you stay with me tonight? My parents are busy, and I'm scared alone. Rocky stopped writing and looked at me with clear, pure eyes. I thought for a long time, unable to come up with a reason to refuse. I really didn't want to see the child's sad face. Okay. His eyes were filled with excitement when I agreed. I looked at his soft black hair and couldn't help but reach out to ruffle it. His hair got messed up, but he wasn't upset, showing his little tiger teeth and smiling with his eyes squinted. Youth is indeed wonderful, full of vitality. In a drowsy state, I felt a hot body pressed against my back, and someone whispered in my ear, "Teacher." I frowned, turned over, and murmured, "It's so hot." I was soon tightly restrained, feeling a warm touch on my lips, fleeting and quickly disappearing. Don't leave me. It has been nearly a month since Tony and I broke up, and neither of us has contacted the other. We didn't delete each other on WeChat as a final gesture of respect. After graduating from college, he took over the family business. Few people knew about our relationship, and he was no longer as reckless as he was before, confessing his love publicly in front of the entire school. When love was at its peak, he would hug me and repeatedly express his feelings. Why, I love you, only you. What if one day you betray me? Then let me be struck by lightning and die a horrible death. He spoke without hesitation, his gaze firm, as if he was sure he would never break his promise. Look, in the face of reality, those promises eventually crumble into ruins. Tony betrayed me. A month later, I received his engagement invitation. He invited me to attend. Haley, Serena, and I are getting engaged. You'll wish me happiness, won't you? My cousin was even more excited than I was upon learning about the engagement, angrily cursing. Tony must be crazy. Why invite you to his engagement? I wish him all kinds of misfortune. I was amused by his reaction. Bro, if you want to cry, just cry. I won't laugh at you. We won't go to the engagement party. No need to make things awkward for ourselves. Want to cry? I touched my heart, feeling nothing at all. The first time I saw flirtatious messages between Tony and someone else on his phone, my heart ached with a dense pain. Repeatedly, I had become numb. I didn't make a scene or act hysterical. It would only make me seem more pathetic. I pretended not to know about these things, treating Tony even better, cooking for him every day, and making him hangover soup when he was drunk at night. His dreams were filled with my name, but it didn't stop him from being affectionate with others outside. Since then, I haven't let him touch me again, and he had become completely reliant on me. TSK, since the engagement is on, there's no need to keep up appearances. I deleted his WeChat and phone number. He betrayed me, so why should I wish him happiness? Of course, I hope he gets struck by lightning and dies a horrible death. After all, those were his own words. The engagement party was grand, with major media outlets in attendance. Their love once dominated the trending searches. The fans were even more delighted than the couple themselves. Finally engaged, sister Serena has found a good match. 9999, they really look good together. A perfect couple. Woo woo, so happy. Tony's gaze at Serena is so affectionate. Today, my social media was filled with posts about these two. It was really nauseating. Bang bang. There was a violent knocking on the door. I went to the door and looked through the peephole. It was Tony. He was flushed, unsteady on his feet, leaning against my door, banging loudly. I frowned. This guy must be out of his mind. Even after the engagement, he's here causing a drunken scene. His noise was so disruptive that the neighbors began to complain. I spoke with irritation. Tony, if you keep this up, I'll call the police for disturbing the peace. After a long while, there was no sound outside, so I assumed he had left. Just then, Rocky's call came in. So late, it must be something urgent. Teacher, I'm so cold and dizzy. Rocky's voice came through the phone, very weak. I could already imagine him curled up in bed with his thin body. I went to the door, grabbing clothes and putting on shoes. Where are your parents? Aren't they home? What about the housekeeper? Mom and Dad are at a company meeting. The housekeeper took the day off for personal reasons. As I opened the door, I saw the man outside. His tall figure was hunched on the ground, his eyes bloodshot. Seeing me, he looked at me with a pitiful expression. He called my name softly. Why haven't you come to see me these days? I'm engaged now. How long are you going to sulk? Tony stepped forward, trying to pull my sleeve. The phone on the other end seemed to hear the commotion and asked cautiously, "If you're busy, it's okay." Hearing this, I decisively pushed Tony away, looking at him with unwarranted scorn. Tony grasped my arm, his eyes red. Who is this man? Seeing his fierce look, I left a harsh remark. Tony, are you lowly or what? Why does it matter to you who he is? I pulled my arm away and pushed him to the ground. Fortunately, I've had some practice over the years, otherwise, I wouldn't know how to handle such a rogue. Tony watched me leave, glaring with anger, and yelled at me from behind. Why did you betray me? You promised to be good to me for a lifetime. You promised. What nonsense. A lifetime you spoke of was just empty words. Must I spend my whole life waiting for you? After I left, the neighbors called the police, and Tony was detained for 3 days for disturbing the peace. Rocky, as I expected, has indeed come down with a fever. I touched his forehead. It was very hot. His eyes looked at me, wet and seemingly in great discomfort. Have you taken your medicine? Rocky shook his head, his voice filled with distress. I'm afraid it's bitter. I prepared the medicine for him, coaxed him into drinking it, and even gave him a piece of candy. Watching him slowly fall asleep, I finally felt relieved. I looked down and saw that Rocky was still holding onto my arm. I was about to pull my arm away to leave. Rocky's thick, curled eyelashes fluttered slightly, and he tightened his grip, murmuring, "Don't go, I'll be good." I patted his head and comforted him. I'm not going anywhere. By the time he woke up, my arm was numb. Teacher, am I very troublesome? Rocky spoke softly, as if he would start crying the moment I responded. Not troublesome, not troublesome. As expected, his face immediately lit up with a smile. I knew it. Tony sent me a friend request again, saying he had something important to discuss. I accepted it, curious to see what his important matter was. 3 days in detention should be enough to make him learn his lesson. Haley, the person in your friends list is not a new love interest. I've investigated and found out he is your cousin. You're doing this to attract my attention, right? Even though I'm engaged now, if you beg me, I might consider breaking off the engagement. Through the screen, I could almost picture Tony's smug expression as he sent this message. It seems my image as someone who listens and obeys has deeply ingrained in him. To this day, he still believes I'm hopelessly in love with him, willing to do anything for him, and will never leave him. Are you crazy? After sending this message, I immediately deleted him from my contacts. A few days later, Serena came knocking at my door. She came to where I work, threw herself at me as soon as she saw me, giving me quite a scare. People around us looked on with interest. I leaned closer to her and whispered in her ear, "Are you desperate for attention? Don't get so close to me." As soon as I said this, she quickly backed away, adjusting her mask to make sure it was on properly. Let's talk. Serena and I found a cafe where she took off her sunglasses and gave me a contemptuous look. Tony loves me. Stop clinging to him. I raised an eyebrow and looked at her coldly. If you're so confident, why are you here? I know you two have been dating since college, but I also liked him back then. I even chose to become an actress just so that one day he would remember me. Fortunately, after graduation, Tony's mother contacted me. She said that if I could break you two up, she would arrange for us to get married. At first, I would occasionally flirt with him to keep him interested. When we were in bed together, hearing him tell you over the phone that he was working late, I felt so pleased. But he wouldn't let me confront you directly, so I endured it, but secretly had paparazzi take photos and post them online. Then his mother started pressuring him to get married, and his father threatened to take away everything he had if he didn't break up with you. And you really don't understand. You walked right into it. Breaking up with you was well deserved, and Tony agreed to get engaged to me. I watched as her expression of happiness gradually turned into a twisted snarl. But even though he sleeps in the same bed with me every day, he refuses to touch me. When he's drunk, he calls out your name. He says he wants to eat the food I cook, so I make it for him. He takes a bite and then throws it away in front of me, saying it's not you. Why? When I understand him better? I looked at her, expressionless, as she raged in front of me, remaining very calm. Actually, in a way, you two are quite suited to each other. After all, you're both neurotic. I turned and walked away, ignoring her. Before loving someone, you must first love yourself. At any time, no one is more important than yourself. So from the moment I realized Tony's betrayal, I distanced myself from this emotional entanglement. Otherwise, Serena's appearance today would be me from the past. Questioning like a madwoman only invites more contempt. Teacher, I've been called to the school. Can you come? Seeing this message, I could already imagine how carefully Rocky must have phrased it. Sure. My repeated agreement to Rocky's requests isn't solely because of the high remuneration. I see a reflection of my younger self in him. I was a left-behind child, raised by my grandparents. My parents lacked affection for me from a young age, leading to a profound sense of insecurity and low self-esteem. As a child, I was easily influenced by others' words and even started to please people in order to make friends. Repeated betrayals led me to close off my heart and no longer open up to others. I became reclusive and developed social anxiety until Tony came into my life, making me believe that there could be someone who truly cared about me. When my grandfather fell ill and needed a lot of money for treatment, he feared hurting my pride and made out an IOU to cover the medical expenses. Even though my grandfather's surgery ultimately failed, I remained deeply grateful to him. He would make me laugh with his antics when I was unhappy. When I was mocked for having autism, he would angrily defend me. In moments of insecurity, he firmly told me that I could trust him. Even with a heart as hard as stone, he chipped away at it bit by bit, melting the iceberg of my emotions. Even when we were together, it was just a like, and I was almost on the verge of loving him. I am also grateful for my childhood experiences, as they made it easier for me to let go of him. You are Rocky's guardian? The teacher looked me up and down with a disdainful gaze. Rocky's school is an elite institution where everyone is either wealthy or influential. Compared to the other parents, whose outfits were all designer brands, mine were all off-brands. Is this what it has come to now? Teachers judging people based on their clothes? Just as I feared. Since Rocky's guardian is here, let's have Rocky apologize to the classmate and make compensation. According to school rules, we will issue him a disciplinary action. The other parent, hearing the teacher's bias, snorted and crossed their arms, looking down their nose at me. I didn't understand what had happened or why an apology was demanded. Teacher, can you tell me what happened? Why does he need to apologize? The teacher explained that Rocky had inexplicably hit a classmate, causing the classmate's head to bleed. When asked about the reason, he remained silent. It couldn't have been for no reason. The classmate's parent, hearing the teacher recount the events, angrily raised their hand to slap Rocky. What a wild child, daring to hit anyone's kid. Seeing Rocky standing there as if ready to take the slap, I grabbed his arm and pulled him away, making the slap fall short. Rocky hid behind me, a look of surprise in his eyes. The other parent, realizing the slap had missed, stomped their foot in frustration. I didn't trust anyone's words. I whispered to Rocky, "Did you really hit a classmate?" Rocky remained silent but nodded. The other parent, sensing they had a strong argument, became even more arrogant. You see, I told you it was him. Who else in the class could have such a malicious heart? My child said there wasn't even a parent attending the meeting. What else could he be but a wild child? No wonder his character is so poor. Her words annoyed me, and I retorted sharply, "Stop calling him a wild child. No wonder your child got hit. Like mother, like child. It's deserved. If parents behave this way, what can you expect from the children?" This is how elite school parents teach their kids, mocking classmates and giving them nicknames? Hearing her comments, though I hadn't figured everything out, it was clear Rocky had suffered at school, being mocked and scolded, leading him to lash out. I was also called a wild child as a kid. They said my parents abandoned me for work, leaving me as an unwanted child. Back then, my grandparents were old and powerless, and I cried myself to sleep every night. I held Rocky in my arms, gently patting his back. Rocky, tell the teacher exactly what happened. No matter what, I am on your side. Don't be afraid. Rocky slowly lifted his head, meeting my gaze. My eyes held a softness and trust he had never seen before. He felt a warm current flowing into his heart, a trust he had never experienced. He looked into my eyes, parted his lips, and began to recount everything that happened, bit by bit. It seemed to be the first time the teacher heard him speak so much, and there was shock in her eyes. As I had suspected, his classmates had hurled insults and ridicule at him while he was doing his homework, saying he wasn't just autistic but mentally ill and a wild child. The classmate had been the first to act aggressively. More and more people gathered around, as this was the first time they heard Rocky speak so much. Wow, look, it's the first time Rocky has talked so much. I thought he wouldn't resist even if he was falsely accused. As the truth came to light, the parent's face was losing color. Just as she was about to argue for her child, several classmates stepped forward. I saw it. It was your child who cursed at Rocky first. There's surveillance in the classroom. If you don't believe it, check it out. We all saw it. Yes, he cursed first and then hit Rocky. This child seemed to be generally disliked at school, and more people spoke up. The teacher tried to mediate, and I sneered. If this parent doesn't apologize, I will call the police. If the surveillance is revealed online, they will have to face the consequences. I left it at that. Their family runs a company and values their reputation highly. If their reputation is damaged, no one would dare to collaborate with them in the future. The parent's face went from red to pale, and finally, she bowed to Rocky and apologized under the gaze of everyone. I'm sorry. I looked up slowly at the teacher, my tone indifferent. Does the teacher not need to apologize? Falsely accusing a student and listening only to one side of the story. The situation shifted entirely in our favor, and the teacher dutifully apologized to Rocky. As for the classmate, we let it go. Rocky had already made him bleed, and he got the lesson he deserved. On the way home, Rocky carefully reached out to hold my hand. I clasped his hand and said word by word, Rocky, if you suffer any grievances, you need to speak out. If someone is falsely accusing you, you need to say it too. And if no one believes me, who says no one will believe you? I believe you. Rocky looked at me, a smile spreading across his face, his little tiger teeth shining in the sunlight. I will. At that moment, the shadow of my childhood completely dissipated. After our last conversation at the cafe, Serena seemed to have gone mad. She started using her celebrity status to spread baseless rumors about me online. She claimed I was the third party in her relationship with Tony and even leaked my home address and personal information. Despite all this, she never spoke a word against Tony online. It's laughable. How much must she love him? Whoa, men and men. Forget everything else. Doesn't this person know Serena and Tony are about to get married? Ugh. What a disgusting third party. What the hell? Why do I feel the biggest problem is with Tony here? Ladies, I think Serena has a bit of love brain. Leaking someone's home address and personal information, isn't that illegal? The online backlash was overwhelming, and rational supporters were few and far between. Soon, public opinion crushed the matter. I started being followed, receiving harassing phone calls, and a group of people blocked my front door, making it impossible for me to leave. Rocky, noticing my predicament, took me to his place. I removed the SIM card, turned off my phone, and used Rocky's phone to call the police. The police quickly took away the troublemakers, and Serena was also taken to the station for invading someone's privacy. I posted the audio recording from the cafe online, along with evidence of my relationship with Tony during university and his infidelity. The evidence included chat logs, photos, and videos. Suddenly, the online attack shifted to these two lunatics. What the heck? Tony is so disgusting. And Serena has gone too far by posting someone's home address online. Wow, Tony is truly repulsive, eating from both hands. His actions are just insane. But these two are quite a match. Crazy guy and crazy girl, love brain and lunatic are a perfect match. Impressive, what a twist. Damn, I really misjudged this. Unfollowing. Serena's love has gone too crazy, can't support her anymore. Unfollow +1. Falling to this point is entirely self-inflicted. Unfollow +99.99. I heard that this incident severely damaged Tony's company's reputation. The companies that were supposed to collaborate withdrew their investments, causing enormous financial losses. When I returned home, Tony was squatting downstairs, waiting for me to come back. Seeing me, he immediately approached. Why, you're back. His hair was disheveled, his usually neatly pressed suit was wrinkled, and his tie was crooked. He looked utterly disheveled. "What are you doing here?" "Why, I was wrong. Please forgive me." Tony's voice trembled with endless pleading. He looked at me with deep longing. "Impossible." I looked directly at him, each word a stab to his heart. "Tony's downfall is entirely your own doing. I cannot forgive you." "Why, let me explain." Tony's voice was rough. "I initially did it just to deal with my parents, but I didn't expect to fall into their trap. I said I wanted to break up with you just to make you come back to me, not because I really wanted to break up. After being apart from you, I realized I truly can't live without you." I sneered. At that moment, my desire for revenge reached its peak. Of course Tony can't live without me. Every morning, I learned to be like a dutiful wife, ironing his clothes, matching his outfits, tying his tie, and preparing his breakfast. He has a stomach condition, so I would deliver lunch and dinner to him every day. After his social engagements, I helped him take off his vomit-stained suit and prepared hangover soup for him. I never restricted his personal freedom. He could do whatever he wanted, and I endured his cold demeanor without complaint. None of this was something someone spoiled and pampered could do. After being together, there would only be endless arguments. At these times, Tony would miss my good qualities. He started constantly mentioning my name in front of Serena, saying she couldn't compare to me. "Tony, do you remember the promises you made? Those who betray are punished by heaven. They deserve no good end. However, I'm magnanimous, just don't show up in front of me again." Upon hearing my words, Tony's face turned pale, and he wobbled away from my sight. Later, his family couldn't be saved and went bankrupt. No one was willing to help them. Tony repeatedly begged his former friends, but no one was willing to fill their bottomless pit. He quickly became a stray dog. In the end, this proud young man had to sell his family's villa and his beloved car, barely paying off the debts. Knowing that his current status was unworthy of me, he never came looking for me again. Given that he had once saved my grandfather, whose medical expenses totaled around $200,000, I anonymously sent $500,000 to his account, using the money I had saved over the years and earned from tutoring. With the money, he and his family moved to a new city. It's easy to go from frugal to extravagant, but hard to go from extravagant to frugal. Living on $500,000 to support his family won't be easy, and he will face the hardships of everyday life. After teaching Rocky through the end of high school and sending him off to the college entrance exam, I resigned to his mother. She was extremely grateful, believing that I had saved Rocky, otherwise, his whole life would have been ruined. "You were wrong from the start. Rocky is not the hopeless troublemaker you think he is. You believe he's a bad kid in your heart of hearts. No matter what he does, it's wrong. Do you know he was bullied at school? Every time he had conflicts with people at school, you only listened to the teacher's side, paid them off, and did not care. Did you know he was called a bastard at school?" His mother stood there stunned, her eyes full of shock. "He is well behaved and just wanted to receive some love." I knew I had said enough. If she really listened, she would correct herself. When Rocky returned home and found that I had left, he came straight to where I was staying. At that moment, I was packing my bags, and he stood outside the door with red-rimmed eyes. "Are you going to leave me too?" He rushed forward, hugging me recklessly, tears streaming down his face. "Teacher, you're all I have. Please don't go." I stood there frozen, but eventually reached out and gently patted his back. "Teacher, I'm grown up now. I can be with you. Please don't leave me. I'll be even better from now on." Rocky kept proving himself to me. I sighed and picked up my suitcase, preparing to leave. He stood there with reddened eyes, watching my back. "What are you standing there for? Hurry up and follow me." Rocky's side story. The first time I saw my tutor, I was stunned. I had never met someone so gentle. He taught me with kindness and agreed to almost every request I made. I also tried hard to interact with him as a normal person would. In this relationship, I uncontrollably fell for him. Every time he taught me, I couldn't help but stare at him for a long time. Later, I learned he had a boyfriend, but his boyfriend didn't seem to care for him, always saying he was busy during their calls. Through my investigation, I found out his boyfriend was cheating. I did everything I could to make him see what kind of person his boyfriend really was. Fortunately, they broke up. I had already learned everything taught at school, but I wanted him to praise me more. I started shaping the image of a diligent student, thrilled by his continuous compliments. I wanted to get close to him so much. When I once again managed to get him to my home, I couldn't resist kissing him and quietly watching him sleep. When someone at school insulted me, I fought back. When I called him to school, I thought he would be like my parents, listening only to the teacher's side, getting angry at me, and telling me to stop causing trouble, but he didn't. He chose to believe in me wholeheartedly and helped me fight back time after time. He encouraged me to speak the truth. On the way back, he told me he would always believe in me. I was so happy. He trended on social media and was slandered. He hid at my house for days, and I was worried about him, staying with him every day, afraid he might become despondent. Fortunately, he was stronger than I had imagined and fought back online. I knew he was amazing. I was the first to bow down to my mother, hoping she would deliver the final blow and cause Tony's company to go bankrupt. I thought that after the college entrance exams, I could be with my tutor, but he left me. I stood at his door, watching him pack his suitcase, unable to stop my tears. I begged him not to abandon me, constantly telling him I would behave. In the end, he softened. I was not abandoned. End. The end. If you like Puppy's story, please follow and like it. Updated every morning at 9 a.m.